So welcome to the next in our series of short video interviews with our HR directors, where we ask what's next post-COVID-19. So today I have with me Andrew Stephenson, who is the HR director at Waterstones. So good afternoon, Andrew, and thank you for joining me today.
Good afternoon, great to talk to you.
Okay, Andrew, so what I think would be a good idea at the moment is if you just give us a little overview of your role with Waterstones, so we can just get to know a little bit more about you.
Absolutely. So yeah, I'm the HR director at Waterstones. So looking after all the people across our several hundred, we've got over 300 stores. They're located predominantly in the UK, but we also have operations in the Republic of Ireland, and we have a store in Amsterdam and a store in Brussels. So multiple regions that we operate in, and we employ in the region of 3,000 people across those stores, predominantly in roles as booksellers, but clearly, as with any company, we have a number of support functions as well, based in our offices in Piccadilly in London and in Birmingham.
Thanks, Andrew. So that gives us a better idea. So obviously very challenging time. So let's try and start off with our first question, which is really, what are your present key concerns and challenges for your employees and organisation sort of right now?
I think at the moment, so where we are is as of this week, we've been able to reopen slightly over 200 of our stores. And I think that's gone phenomenally well for us. We've had an enormous amount of very positive feedback from our booksellers, from our other colleagues, from our customers. And so, you know, after what has been a very long 12 weeks for the business, whereas at one point, circa 95% of our organisation was furloughed, we're very happy to be open again. It was great personally to be in a store on Monday and see our customers and see people enjoying books again. And that was brilliant. So our first challenge is how we maintain that positivity that we've created and that has built up to this point. I think we've done a pretty good job of not only maintaining engagement through the period we've been in a lockdown. I think we've actually increased our engagement with our teams in many cases, and that's come about through probably much more direct communications than the business was used to our people, and it being very, very much a two-way conversation with them. And then really that preparation back for work of being very diligent in meeting the government guidelines, but also arguably more diligent in meeting the needs and wants of our teams and what we think our customers would expect, because you want a bookshop to be a really pleasant shopping experience. And so the key bit, those concerns now are how we maintain that, how we keep that level of engagement, how we keep our level of diligence so that we don't slip out of things that haven't yet become habitual but are required. And then there's kind of two other bits. So we still have a reasonable sized population that are furloughed. That's because some of our stores aren't open, and also things like our coffee shops are not yet open. So we need to maintain that engagement with those people and make sure that they're not forgotten and left behind, because we have an operation running now. And then we also really need to start to think of our office populations who've been working from home, and we're very aware that setup varies greatly. Some people are very fortunate and have good facilities. You know, you and I are talking now, and people can see from the image we have a reasonable setup that we're able to do that, but we acknowledge for some people it's not ideal, some of the circumstances they're operating in, and we need to balance where we can improve that or where people do need to come back to work. So there's really three bits. There's the bit that's getting in towards what trading looks like, how we keep them engaged, keep them happy, build on what we've got. There's how we get that group that's behind and keep them ready, willing, able, and waiting to come back into work. And then there's the people who, I'm loath to use the phrase, but I'm going to, how we move them to a new normal that's going to last for a period of time.
Yeah, no, that's fine. I mean, yours is an interesting business because it's the first one I've spoken to in the retail sector. So, which is, you know, and as you said, 96%, I think you just said, didn't you, furlough, which is such an astronomical number, isn't it? And I guess so you've got that kind of piece of lost revenues perhaps, and I guess your online model has been important. But I'm also interested, you talked about engagement. So just because you've had to do it on such a large scale, how have you really managed that?
Yeah, I mean, the first thing, it was clear from as we kind of moved towards lockdown that engagement was going to be an important thing for us, and then particularly as we effectively dispersed our teams out to their homes and away from stores, and as with many organisations of our type, our communication channels were geared up around the idea that people are in our stores quite a lot of the time. So we had a very good two-way communication through our intranet, but that suddenly doesn't become accessible if you're from home. Not all of our employees had company-based email addresses. That was clearly the case, and we didn't have 100% capture of people's email addresses going forward. So we had to do a very, very rapid exercise in finding ways to communicate with people when they weren't in the business, and that was a mix of utilizing our HR system, which had online pay slips, how you use the messaging facility in that we'd never considered. How do you ask people to provide their email addresses and their personal phone numbers and opt in legitimately to us using that for corporate communications? And I think we did a really good job of that, and we reached a point very, very quickly where we had the ability to talk to our people on an ongoing basis in a data secure way all the way through this process. And we even found, there was a couple of people who don't have email access and don't have mobile phones, and that's fine. And so we found ways to communicate with them. Some people said, you will have to write to me. Some people even had arrangements with their neighbours where we would phone them and they'd pass the message on. So it was really, really interesting. But through that, we were then able to start regular communication. So as an absolute minimum, there was a written communication from our COO at least once a week, just talking about what was going on in the stores, and our preparations mainly for getting reopened, and talking about what was going on online, because you're right, that was a huge change for us. But also trying to make it quite personal. So talking about what it was like for us as a team working from home, and some of the challenges that we'd face, because it's important to remember the human side of this thing. So lots of communication about what we were doing, what we were up to, and very important to us that was two-way. So and literally two-way. So those COO communications, as an example, went out from a personal mailbox and they could be replied to. And so this wasn't passing off to a comms team or anything like that. We were actually, as a leadership team for varying communications, we were literally in conversation with our people, which was absolutely fantastic. And then we would update varying questions that were coming up and post them out more generically. But it was actually very, very clear two-way, one-to-one communication with a very big workforce, and that was really powerful to us.
Yeah, no, I think the interesting thing with all of these interviews is the speed and adaptability that organisations have had to move, and I think that two-way conversation with your employees, understanding their anxieties, has been quite critical, isn't it? So, yeah, no, that's really good.
Yeah, and that two-way communication. I mean, the bit I've talked about there was with that very, very large population that were clearly not in work. I think what we definitely can't forget is that small pool of people that worked throughout and really did keep the lights on our business and provided a phenomenal service to our customers. So our distribution centre, in the normal course of events, is designed to support a network of over 300 stores. It is not designed for mass fulfilment to customers. And so that involved literally the physical redesign of some of that workspace with our logistics partners and with our teams and with our delivery partners, and clearly that involved an awful lot of engagement with our people to ensure that those customers out there who still wanted, and in many cases had a need for books, were able to get them in a reasonable time. I mean, we had phenomenal spikes in things like educational books, because obviously with many children at home, that was something that there was a real demand out there for. And so, yeah, the people who were in as well were hugely important to that, and it was very key that we were engaged and we worked with them. We were actually able, in order to support our warehouse and to help it be as efficient as it can, we also brought a number of stores on, as dark stores. So they operated closed to customers, but picking internet orders to support the web delivery. And again, that involved real engagement, and every one of those stores was manned and staffed by volunteers. So every single person who was in there wanted to be in there, was delighted to be in there, and you know, I think that was really important, and we're absolutely grateful to everybody in the organisation, both those who were furloughed and remained supportive, and those who, you know, kept things running and kept things ticking over, so that we could get to the point this week where we've brought the vast majority of stores in England certainly back online, and as I say, seemingly in a very positive manner.
And I can imagine that I look for opportunities in all these things, and I think this is really important too. And I can imagine the online model for you has probably been a positive. But okay, so that's a really good time to move on to question 2, really. So, and which is really about where you're at now, I guess, in terms of that preparation you've actually for the business for this stage return, which is kind of just happening or happened. And the measures you've implemented to keep everyone safe. I guess that's customers and employees.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's been a concerted effort across the organisation, and you know, as I've said, everybody's done a fantastic job. But our health and safety and our operation teams have done tremendous work in getting to a place where the stores do feel like a safe environment for our customers and for our booksellers, and that importantly they feel like bookshops. So that there is clearly physical things that are different as you walk in the door, but fundamentally, and as I say, as with the rest of the leadership team, we spent time on Monday in those stores and chatting to some customers from a sensible distance, and the beauty was it feels like a bookshop. And that's really important. And you know, we've invested in a huge amount of PPE, as clearly of other retailers out there. So whether that's the sneeze guards that we have custom designed so that they fit in with our fixtures and fittings over the till points, the sanitizer stations that we have on each of the entrances and at other points around the stores, and in front of lifts in the stores that are on multiple levels. Very clear signage, and it was really fascinating to watch customers coming in and clearly as they go into each store, really reading that signage as to how it works in that store, because obviously everyone's slightly different. And then the other thing we have is clearly one of the beauties of a bookshop is the ability to flick the pages and look at the book. So we have book trolleys so that people can do that, and if they then don't want to buy it, they place it down, and we can quarantine that book for a period of 72 hours, which all the evidence says is more than long enough for the for COVID-19 not to be on that surface anymore. We quarantine the book, and the beauty of our product is it comes back 3 days later in completely perfect condition, and you can put it back on the shelf. So that's the physical things that you see in the store. As we were getting ready, we set up the vast majority of the stores while we were closed, but we wanted that to be a two-way conversation. So yes, health and safety and the operations teams we had in were key, but we wanted everybody to be involved. So again, you talked on the use of technology. So we ran live video tours of a number of our stores over Zoom with several hundred of our employees on each one, and we literally took them through and we enabled the live chat, and you know, there was vast rafts of questions coming in from our teams, and we answered as many as we could realistically on the call, but literally there was lots and lots of questions. And so after that, we followed up with a written communication out to everyone saying, you know, this is literally every question that we have been asked by the teams, and here's our response to them all. And that involved, you know, many things that frankly we had considered, but those few that we hadn't, they were factored in, and some changes were made for certain size of stores. So we've done that. Clearly there was risk assessments that have to be done to keep anybody safe, but we've also added COVID-19 champions in every single store, so they've been picked in each store, and then we have a dedicated elected rep for coronavirus health and safety issues that was done as an election across all of our employees, furloughed or not. We had electronic voting so that everyone could do that. And that group will come together again digitally in much the way we are to make sure that everything we are doing is happening. When you've got a geographically dispersed store, there is always the risk that there's the odd moment, something for no deliberate reason, but something slightly slips from the standards that you want. And it's really important that everybody in the company knows that they can rapidly escalate that if they need to, and we can get it fixed very, very quickly. So we've done that. And then at the extreme end of that, you know, we've kind of relaunched our whistleblowing policy again to make sure if there was any need, somebody thought, to report something anonymously, that they're well aware of the mechanics to do that. So just a chance to build that kind of refreshment and to make sure that everybody knows we're taking this seriously. It's not just physical, it is how we behave, how we act, and how we make it that really pleasant experience for customers and colleagues alike. I think the other bit just on it's something that applied during the furlough period, but that extends into now. We're very aware that there's a lot of focus on the physical safety elements of what's going on with coronavirus and the way that we're reopening stores. But I think very early on, as our people were going off into what was an unknown period of furlough, we were acutely aware of the potential mental health issues that could bestow for a multitude of reasons. And we had a look at our offering really early on. And we have an EAP provider, and in the main they do a really good job, but we felt our mental health provision in particular would be useful to bolster it and provide more. And so I'm really pleased that in that very early, I think it was week 2 of furlough, we launched a new proposition in partnership with Big White Wall to provide mental health support to all of our people. And you know, in a time when all of your stores are closed, you have to watch everything. And I'm really pleased that as a business, we took the decision to invest, and not in substantive sum of money, into that provision. And also that we made it a permanent provision for our employees, not one that was just kind of time limited to the current situation. And so I think that really stood out as a little bit of you know, how we were treating things, and clearly that's an anonymous environment, but we do see the levels of interaction with it, and it is clear it has been a very valuable tool for a substantive amount of our employees, and I think that's really good that we've been able to do that. We also refreshed some other bits of our wellbeing policy. So we were able to provide, we provided a service called Instructor Live that operated live coaching exercise sessions into our people, and we were able to provide nutrition advice to our people, and all of that was opt-in, and it's a balance. You've got to try and understand, you know, where you draw the line on preaching to people versus offering them things. But what we wanted to make sure is that our provision was strong, and that people who needed some help and guidance and to establish a normality in that period had it. And I'm really confident as we reopen, and again, there will clearly be mental health concerns as people come back into the workplace, that as well as the very direct two-way communication with their management, their leadership team, their colleagues, and all the support they've got, but we've also provided that very, very high quality third party provision to really support our people as we go through what is a very severe change curve.
No, I think a couple of things that you mentioned there, which you just find quite, just the speed that you've had to adapt, I think is incredible. The trolley idea was quite interesting. I was trying to think, how are you going to pick up a book? And I was trying to work that one out, and that makes perfect sense. So it's a great workaround there. Well-being is so important at the moment. And yeah, okay. And there was one other thing I know we mentioned previously before we started this interview, which I was interested in, because you were talking about, we were talking about public transport and travel. You were talking about relocating some of your teams to, yeah, I mean, share us a little bit about that idea.
Yeah, so clearly, I mean, slightly touching on the previous point, but we in these first stages of opening, we do not need all of our teams back. That's absolutely clear, and we hope business recovers fairly quickly, and that's not the case. But from a matter of some locations just aren't practical to open, as I say, we still don't know when we can open coffee shops and various other factors. We have more people than we require at this point, and that allowed us to do a really good exercise to say, look, if you've got any reason at all that you do not think coming back to work for you at this point is right, then that's something we will be able to accommodate. And that was all done. So we did do an email survey, but we also had an actual telephone call with every single employee. So our management team, physically spoke to every person, and they had done a few times through our lockdown period, but a specific return to work conversation where we could deal with concerns. What was clear is that there were some concerns around public transport and logistics, and it's amazing when you sit back and look at how, all for practical operational reasons, but you realise over time in a geographically dispersed business like ours, quite how many people cross each other on their journeys to work, from their point of home to their point of work. And as I say, that there's a multitude of reasons. Some people may have a specialist knowledge in a certain category of products that we only carry in certain stores, and various other reasons. Maybe they've moved house since they got the job, but when you look at it, you suddenly go, there's people passing each other everywhere. So we literally did the exercise, and there could have been sophisticated ways we'd done it with mapping, but we literally just said to everyone, what is the optimal store for you to work in from a travel perspective? Which isn't always necessarily the closest, because there's various other things that work, but which is the optimal store? And it was amazing how many people had a store that was considerably better for them to work in, either reduce their travel or just made it simpler for them. And so we have accommodated pretty much the vast majority of those, which has lots of benefits. People are more engaged, they're getting a better work-life balance. It's reducing the amount of travel that they need to do. As a business, it's actually reducing our travel costs, which is quite an interesting byproduct. And it's one of those, as we move further forward and as more stores open, as I say, many of those things were caused by very legitimate reasons. But I think what we won't do is just snap back to where we were. We will look at every single case and go, are there some practical steps here that will really work? But that's been a great exercise of just tidying up a little bit of corporate madness, maybe.
I think there's so much learning coming from this, which again takes us on to the next question anyway. So what are the opportunities from the learning from this crisis, and the journey destination for the business? I guess, how do you see this panning out for you as an HRD, for your HR function and your employees?
Yeah, enormous question, and I think clearly the answer is who knows. One of the biggest learnings of this session this period has been agility, and I think you're right. The organisation I'm in has proved itself to be far more agile than it probably ever would have assessed itself. And as I talk to other people and other organisations that I know and I'm involved in, I think that's been the case everywhere. And I hear over and over again that people have done 3-4 years of business development in 12-14 weeks through sheer necessity. And I think it's important that we don't let that disappear very quickly. I think we need to really look at that ability to adapt an organisation at speed, and that we retain that. As I say, the other bit for me, I think we were on a journey to becoming a much more 21st century employer in how we interact with our employees. You know, we've been talking as a management team about the fact people want to work with a business as opposed to for a business, and they want to be much more involved and much more communicated in. And to be fair, all the things that people have heard in HR conferences and meetings and publications for a long time. But I think what's happened over the last few weeks is a very visible step change in that in a very rapid period of time. And I think our employees in many ways would not forgive us if we went back to a kind of slightly more broadcast communication. I think that is now here to stay, that much more involvement with the teams, and it gets you better results, and that's how you do things faster. So I think we definitely need to retain that. I also think one bit I was very keen on from the start, and I think we've managed reasonably well, not perfectly, because you know, you can always improve, but I think we've put the human into human resources quite a bit. We clearly had policy decisions to make, but in the main, we have spoken to individuals, and we have tried to be very individualistic in our response to people, and we have tried to look at where we can adapt what we're doing and amend what we're doing to absolutely support individuals. And as I say, there's the balance, because as with all of these things, you still got to be fair and consistent in what you're doing. But we have had very individual conversations with people, and we have tried as much as we can, and I think in the main we've succeeded to support people in a way that works best for them. And as I say, there's multitudes of examples as people went off, and the travel one I just talked about works as people come back in. It's what can we do so that you and the business can best work together to do the right thing for you, for the company, and for our customers, who at the end of the day are, you know, what makes the whole thing work and wants to come in and have a pleasant and fabulous time buying books in bookstores.
Yeah, and I guess you're having, as this evolves, you're having discussions, you know, at sort of board level about, you know, the future, how this business, because it is having such a huge impact that I think the journey ahead is going to be very, very different, perhaps. But we don't necessarily know what it's going to look like at the moment. But there's certainly those seeds of thought, isn't there?
Yeah, you have to constantly look at the future. I mean, it's really interesting. So clearly, online has been phenomenally important to us over the last few weeks, and online will remain important. And there's clearly a number of customers who used that channel so that they can access books, and there's clearly, I think, for many operational reasons, there's a number of online customers that we gained from a rather large competitor that operates in our space. And I think it's important to us that we keep those customers, but fundamentally we are a bookshop. We want to be the best local bookshop on your high street that is tailored to your environment and is an experiential and beautiful place. And in the grand scheme of things, you come in and you browse around and you discover through serendipity something you didn't know you were going to discover that day, and you have a nice coffee and you wander around, and that's kind of the raison d'etre where the business is, and we have to find a way to move towards that. And as I say, as you go into our stores now, they are different. They are noticeably different. You can tell they're different. But I think certainly what I felt in the store I was in, and talking to many of our booksellers and teams around, I think we, in the main, did a pretty good job of it feeling like a bookshop, and you've been able to have a pleasant experience and and shop and take pleasure in a great experience. And that's what we need to really focus on and go, however long the things we have to do are what we have to do, how do we keep them in place, keep the safety? That's absolutely the priority for our teams and from our customers. But how do we keep that safety and make it more and more like the pleasant and fabulous experience that shopping in a bookshop should be?
No, I think, and the retail, listen, the challenge for retail is that experience piece, and I'm really pleased to hear that Waterstones are feeling that way, because it is that come in, browse, have a look, discover things, as you rightly say, just as it is equally with music, isn't it? Right, terrific. Okay, so last question for you then. So this one's really a bit more personal to you. So it's kind of like HR leader in COVID-19 times. Challenging, frightening, scary. I always say to people, what are you feeling at the moment?
That's it's one of those enormous questions. I'm thinking I could definitely do with a few days in the sun. That would be quite nice, to say the least. Look, I think, as I said earlier, one of the bits the team have worked hard, but that phenomenally the team have done the vast majority of the heavy lifting, as of the teams, and I think we've worked hard, but there's so many people in our organisation and others that have done more important things. HR has been, I would hope, really important and really, key to helping us do things the right way. But fundamentally, what we've done is support the business, getting us into a place where we can do it. And as I say, one of the bits I'm very proud of what the team have done. I'm very proud of the fact that we got to the position where our stores have opened in a very positive manner and getting good feedback. I'm incredibly proud of the team, and I think what we can't lose is the collaboration that we've built across functions, and I think we were very good at that anyway, but it's definitely accelerated, and through the fact that we've had daily coronavirus exec team meetings every day, that collaboration's built naturally, and we certainly will continue that for quite a long time. So I think HR collaborating much more than maybe it does or is even allowed to, dare I say, sometimes. I think that's incredibly important, that we keep hold of it. And as I say, the bit personal proud, I'm very personally proud that I think we made a concerted effort, and in the main we landed putting that human bit into human resources. I think we HR is one of those things. I remember somebody once telling me that pencils are resources, not human, and I think that's really important. I think we treated people well. We treated them individually. We treated them with respect. I think we've built a great engagement. I think it would be horrific if we stepped away from that. So no, I'm feeling like I'd rather not have a crisis like this pop up again, as I'm sure everybody in the country would. And you sit here and I can think of a dozen things we probably could have done better, and we'll learn from those and we'll go on. But I think in the main, can I look myself in the eye and say we tried to do everything right? I can. Can I say that the organisation and the leadership team and all of our people through the business really tried to pull together? I can. And I'm phenomenally proud of the HR team that I led that played their part in that, alongside many other parts of the business. But yeah, we were absolutely in there and absolutely a key bit of what we did.
I think that's really a nice way of sort of ending the interview. Really, it's I could clearly see the plans that have been put in place, the speed, the safety. It's just fascinating to see that retail piece work out and how you've gone through that process, and it's really impressive. So listen, thank you for your time today. Next time, join me when I speak to another HR director, but keep safe and stay well and keep communicating. But thanks, Andrew.
Yeah, thanks very much. Absolute pleasure.